Hey everybody, Gons here for the Face Like the Sun channel. Hope you guys are having a really good day. I wanted to break down this video here by Jonathan Bloom, who published this piece here. The Void brings a magician's spin on the illusion of virtual reality to San Francisco, and a new entertainment pop-up at Westfield San Francisco Center puts you into the Star Wars universe where you can smell the rocket fuel and feel the impact from enemy blasters. And I'll play the video for you because I think there's a lot in there. I'll pause it in places to comment on things, but this really does go to show we're beginning to see the next phase of entertainment media. I mean, we've already known this, that VR is going to be a big thing, but these guys are really putting it into high gear and producing a product or location that really does this well. Of course, again, there's a lot out there doing this type of thing. There are already things called escape rooms that you guys might be familiar with. And basically, those are places where you can go, stages and warehouses and things that they set up. And you wear VR or AR goggles and you get to walk through. And it's kind of like solving a puzzle or a game. There's thematic ones with, popular movies, and there's all kinds of stuff. So I'm not going to really get into escape rooms, but I just have this particular reference here, top 5 VR escape room games, and the top one according to this wearvr.com site, Nevrosa Prelude is the best one, and it's got the all-seeing eye in there, typical stuff, right? I mean, we've all known why they're doing this type of thing, but let me play you the video and stop it along the way. The Void at the mall.
Void is an immersive reality that you can step into with your friends and family.
I'm going to hand you your helmet.
I'm a magician by trade, and there's a lot of theory that goes into creating the illusion of the impossible.
Follow me.
That's what virtual reality really is. I mean, if we're going to put you inside of Star Wars, that's an impossible reality. That's not a reality that you're going to actually travel to and visit. So we use a lot of magic theory and design behind the scenes to help convince you, even if it's just subconsciously, that these things are real.
What'd you think?
It was so good.
Ah, the mall. It's a place you come to go shopping, see a movie, maybe grab a bite to eat. But what if the mall were actually a portal to another dimension? It's time to step inside the void.
Okay, so, I know he's being colorful with his language there. A portal into another dimension. It's a little over dramatic because all you're doing is really stepping into a room with objects and putting on a bunch of gear that makes you think you're in another room. But look, this is the type of thing that we, again, have been pointing to as a way that we are sort of stepping away from our physical selves, and they're trying to sort of change or manipulate how we think about not just who we are or what we are, but where we are. And, the nature of reality, those things get questioned, at least at a subconscious level. I think when people go through stuff like this and they don't have an awareness of what the bigger picture is, I think most people just kind of enjoy the experience. And I'm sure it is kind of an enjoyable experience in terms of the newness of it, the sense of adventure, that kind of thing. And look, this is going to become very popular, folks. I think this is going to replace going to movies, at least for a while. It's going to be highly contingent on large companies and corporations or whoever that have the money to build this kind of thing, because it's, the more immersive it gets, the more expensive it's going to be. And so, you're going to have to be in a smart city to go to one of these maybe. But in reality, I think what the elite want, they want everybody to be in that state that they're going to show here. They want people to be in that virtual oasis, right? They want them to be there 24/7. And I found some interesting symbols here from this report that I think reveals some things about the reality of the situation here. So let me keep going here. This guy, again, Jonathan Bloom. Good job on the report, Jonathan Bloom, but I think he missed some stuff here. Check this out.
Time to step inside the void. This just sprung up overnight?
Yeah, just overnight, yeah, easy peasy.
Curtis Hickman is a magician, but even he can't make something like this just appear.
This is where you check in. How's it going?
The new virtual reality pop-up took weeks to build under the dome of Westfield San Francisco Center.
Okay, the fact that it was built under a dome is significant here. You shouldn't miss this because One of the most popular domes in the United States is in the U.S. Capitol building. I've referenced this several times and it bears repeating over and over again because I know there's new people on the channel all the time, but this is actually wearetraveler.com website here. In search of George Washington, according to Jean Lawler Cohen, Mason, distiller, ballroom dancer, there's more to this founding father than you think. Here's where to trace his touch in the city that bears his name. And the first picture he's got is the apotheosis of George Washington. Apo, man, theosis, God, man becoming God. This is the same type of ascension language that you hear in the New Age. It's the same language that you hear with transhumanism. This is the long-awaited agenda of the occult and the esoteric elite. They want to transcend. They want to become gods, just like we were promised in the garden by the serpent falsely, and that has never changed. But the reality is, and this is something I've emphasized a lot on the channel recently, is that we are fallen, but our restoration in Jesus Christ is really the real restoration into our intended state, our intended eternal state. So that's something to think about here. In this reality, what's the truth? Is it us? Do we have to climb that Tower of Babel back into apotheosis or that eternal state, or did Jesus Christ actually solve all that on the cross as a gift from God? Again, notice how this topic of VR and the void is just so biblically centered, even with these little nuanced things to point out, like it's under a dome. Oh, no big deal, it's under a dome. No, it's under a dome for a reason, I think. I mean, maybe location and logistics worked, but I wanted to point this out because there's more to it. Let's take a closer look at the apotheosis of George Washington real quick. Of course, you got George Washington right there in the middle. Look, he's a god now. He's become one of the ascended masters. He's become one of the eternal beings, right? And, of course, you have E pluribus unum, which means out of many, one. And I know it's upside down right here, but let's take a peek at that real quick. According to the U.S. Department of Treasury, E pluribus unum, out of many, one, and it's supposed to be, the 13 colonies coming together to form a union, and those are the types of ways in which we were taught some of these phrases mean. But it's really easy to start looking at some of these things and realize that, hey, the kind of thinking that might have been going on with E pluribus unum, and here it is again, right side up, but what they may have known is that when you apply this principle of out of many, one, to the greater, not just the United States, and I get it. I'm proud of being an American. The United States is, has been able to help progress humanity in so many different ways, but also we know that it's a major piece to the New World Order agenda. And if you think about out of many, one, and apply that to the entire world, all the countries, all the nations, all the ethnicities, out of many, one, you start realizing that, hey, there is a new world order, one world government, one world democracy, whatever you want to call it. There's that sentiment as well as a more spiritual one world hive mind type of aspect to this as well. If we go back to the painting real quick, the other thing I wanted to point out here is that George Washington is actually sitting on a rainbow. Okay, I think this is significant for a couple different reasons. Now, I like what the Vigilant Citizen pointed out in a breakdown of The Wizard of Oz in one of his old posts, talking about mind control. And in this little section, it says, in each case, the slave is given a particular interpretation of the movie's storyline in order to enhance programming. For example, a slave watching The Wizard of Oz is taught that somewhere over the rainbow is the happy place dissociative trauma slaves must go to in order to escape the unbearable pain being inflicted upon them. Using the movie, programmers encourage slaves to go over the rainbow and disassociate, effectively separating their minds from their bodies. How appropriate is that discussion when we start talking about immersing ourselves and exposing ourselves to virtual reality? And of course, we know the other use case of the rainbow and the abuse of the rainbow when it comes to the modern iteration of it. And the whole movement here has a tie-in with the transhumanist agenda. And, interestingly enough, just as a complete side note, I noticed that on my YouTube, I was subscribed to some random person and he was live streaming. So I clicked on it and it was just a trans person talking about their own thing. I never subbed to this channel. but for some reason it said I was subscribed to it. So thank you, YouTube, for trying to help me become more exposed to the tea community, so to speak, by showing me videos from channels that I didn't even subscribe to. Anyway, us becoming gods, us transcending the body somehow, and really separating the mind and body. That's exactly what's taking place with virtual reality when you really look at the nitty-gritty of it all. So, with that said, let's go back to the VR, the void, and again, under this dome. Of course, we don't have the apotheosis of George Washington in this dome, but look, all these domes were made, at least the people who are behind the esoteric principles, they know the reason behind making these things, and they know what it stands for, what it represents. So anyway, that's something I just noticed as a little side note from this presentation by Jonathan Boone. But let's get back to the video.
Reality pop-up took weeks to build under the dome of Westfield's San Francisco Center, a preview of the much bigger space they're building downstairs. The name is an acronym.
The void stands for Vision of Infinite Dimensions.
And the first dimension you can visit is a galaxy far, far away.
So the vision of infinite dimensions, the void. Man, that's so fascinating because, of course, when we think of the void, we think of, well, maybe Jeremiah 4:23, I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens, and they had no light. And of course, this reflects the same void mentioned at the very beginning of the Bible, Genesis 1, verse 2, and the earth was without form and void. And of course, void in the Hebrew is bohu, tohu and bohu, formless and void, and it means emptiness. So just something interesting, another connection here to how this is all tying into the greater spiritual picture.
And the first dimension you can visit is a galaxy far, far away. Star Wars Secrets of the Empire sends you on a rebel mission.
Cassian Andor himself is going to be giving you that mission.
Okay.
You're not the only one who lost everything.
Diego Luna returns to his role from Rogue One, and so does Alan Tudyk
Looks like you'll have to fight your way out.
as the smart-mouthed K2SO. But the star of the story
First step's putting the vest on.
is you.
You're going to put it on just like a backpack.
Okay, so that's the other part of it here. The star is you. You're the star. And remember the 15 minutes of fame that was, I guess, mentioned by Andy Warhol, although some people are suggesting that he never really said it. But in any case, the idea here that everybody gets to be in that role of the star, the celebrity, I think that also is very, very interesting because it plays into the pride aspect. It plays into this idea that you can pretend like you're something else and, again, disassociate from reality.
So one arm goes in this side, one arm goes in that side.
All right.
In 2015, when Hickman co-founded The Void, gear like this didn't exist, so they had to create it.
If you happen to get shot for some reason, you're going to feel it. You're actually going to feel the impact.
But that is only the beginning.
You walk around an environment, you see a chair, you can sit down on it. If there's fire, it feels hot. If it's raining, you feel the moisture. I mean, it's like you're actually there.
Using all your senses is how The Void crosses the line from plain old VR to straight-up magic.
Honestly, with
Straight up magic. Plain old VR to straight up magic. I know, again, he's playing with his words, but we're running out of regular words to use to describe it. The only natural verbiage that seems to come out and to explain this is like dimensions and magic and all that kind of stuff. It's very fascinating.
The line from plain old VR to straight-up magic.
honestly, it was really how do we take virtual reality and make good on that promise of being another place, not just seeing another place.
For
All under the controlled eye of the controllers, the people behind the computers, the people behind the glass wall, right?
Hickman, it's all about what you don't see once that visor goes down.
Blasting off.
I was a magician for a really long time. I designed things used by some of the top magicians.
Now, his greatest illusion yet is what lies behind those metal doors. No cameras are allowed inside, but The Void provided us this video.
What we call the stage, the environment that you're in, has all these little props and touchables and sensors and things that are tracking where you are, what you're doing.
And the team here will rearrange the stage to match the virtual world in each new adventure. That means when you reach out and touch something, it's actually there.
Like the lever. Like when there was buttons and things, I wasn't expecting they would be able to touch them.
The fact is, people aren't used to VR you can touch, and that's where the theory of magic comes in. The storylines are sprinkled with little moments magicians call convincers.
When you begin Secrets of the Empire, the first thing we ask you to do is to sit down on this chair. Now, all you're seeing is a digital representation of a chair that may or may not exist, but we're asking you to trust us and put your weight on it. So as soon as you do,
We're asking you to trust us. Like, I know what they're saying, but come on, man.
We're asking you to trust us and put your weight on it. And so as soon as you do, that digital object has a sense of permanence. It becomes real. And
It becomes real. Again, to your brain, being deceived, it becomes real.
then the other things around you that you can't touch, those become more and more real as well.
Once the objects become real, so do the feelings, like fear.
Get on that skiff. Do your best to act imperial.
I feel I should be able to jump down, it should be okay. Nothing should happen. But you can't bring yourself to do it.
Feeling heat from the lava, even smelling the rocket fuel. A funny thing happens when you're fully immersed. You lose track of time.
What do you think?
Really good.
No one
You know, it's a really interesting comment there that you lose track of time, because I feel like this sort of technology is starting to mimic what we experience in dreams. And that's a whole other rabbit trail. I'm not going to go into it in this video here, but I really think that's what they're tapping into. They're tapping into that area that's actually immaterial in a sense, because it is really truly the mind. And I think this goes to show why the Bible talks about the helmet of salvation, not the helmet of VR. But in any case, let's finish this little video here.
knows exactly how long they were in there. They just know it wasn't long enough.
We want it longer, we want it longer. So we make the experiences longer, and then they come out like, wow, that was great, I want it longer.
And that's that right there, wanting to stay in it longer. That chemical addiction, whatever's happening in the brain that's causing these people to want it more, that is proof right there that people are going to be addicted to this. In fact, this is how people are going to make a living in the future. It's going to happen in the next decade. But, you know, you might be asking, hey, you know what? How is it going to happen? You know, your normal folk is not going to get into VR. Want to make a bet? And the church may be the place where it's going to make it happen the fastest, because I've had theories about how the church is going to be responsible for really, you know, handing out the VR goggles to everybody, because there's going to be some kind of virtual Bible app. Well, there is such a thing. And maybe somebody else has covered this, and, you know, I don't know how long it's been around, but check this out. This is Bible-VR.com. Just.imagine. If you could travel to the Holy Land today, pray in churches around the world anytime, witness the birth of Jesus and other events, and pull the veil off like this lady's doing here, wouldn't you want to do that using VR? Are you ready? Let's see what it says here. Well, let's go back real quick. That was a really interesting picture. I think it was the last one here. Yeah, tearing open the Bible and entering it at the light. Interesting images here. Anyway, okay, so let's go in here. You got the Explorer app. They got the VR goggles. Here you go. This is how they're going to distribute the goggles to lots of youth. I'm sure a lot of, you know, more wealthy youth churches are going to start having these types of programs for their kids, because they're going to have to keep up, right? So, you know, it's debatable. Like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of going with the times on one hand, but on the other hand, we know where this is headed. This is headed to a very bad place. So proceed with caution to any churches out there that are thinking about doing this. I think it's important, if you're going to have programs like this for the youth, especially, you want to tell them the other side of things as well. Like, hey, this is a little bit dangerous, because, you know, there's this other thing the Bible talks about where people, you know, want to die and they can't because they're trapped in some kind of weird state where the iron mixed with miry clay, all kinds of strangeness going on in the book of Revelation. All that could be possible now that you have your VR goggles. Discover the cenacle, the supper room, crucifixion of Jesus. That's interesting. Is that what it looks like? Am I looking at the images here? Stone of Unction, Church of All Nations, Garden of Gethsemane. So I don't know, maybe this is just kind of like the tour that you would go on if you visit Israel. Maybe some of you guys out there who have visited Israel know of these locations, and maybe they just, you know, threw up a VR camera and are making it so people can, you know, kind of go to those rooms and get a very loose sense of what it's like to be in there. But in any case, so there you go. That's one thing there. Let's keep going down. Learn. Yeah, you got the Sea of Galilee. Explore. Look for the VR icon. Get your VR headset now. Buy a headset as cheap as $8. There you go. That's how cheap it is. $8 for these goggles. Of course, some youth churches are going to start doing this. Now you got your using Bible VR tutorial. Need more help? Contact us. If you go to the About page here, you got our story, our vision, our partners. Virtually Israel. Interesting. Rendeavor, which I think is actually a VR headset, or at least a VR company that's distributing VR and VR experiences for old people in old folks' homes and stuff, so people can communicate with their family and whatnot. It's an interesting project. You have Ozo from Nokia, which is probably their VR project. Ark of Noah, which is actually, I looked this up, and it was actually just the big ark that some guy built, and there's a VR version of it that you can check out. You have BroTech, which if you look at this is a Virtually Israel website here, their about page, and they're associated with Merona Campus Leadership Foundation, Adam and Gilla Milstein Family Foundation, and the BroTech Company, which is a bridge between the technology sector and the entertainment industry. And again, out of Israel. I find this very interesting. Why out of Israel? Well, maybe we know why. Maybe we know that the Zionists are funding these types of programs because they want to bring about the e pluribus unum, out of many, one. They want to bring about the one for them, which is, to us, probably the Antichrist. So there you have it. The Bible VR project, funded, or at least supported by Virtually Israel, or at least partners with. So what do we do here? Do we make our own type of VR product where we can tell people like, hey, this thing you have on now, be very careful, make sure to take it off and spend some days without it, or whatever needs to be happening for people to not fall into it entirely. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section. There's a lot happening in the tech sector, and despite the fact that the economy is just going crazy right now and everything's changing, everything is shaky, regardless, the technology and the hubs of technology are going to continue to evolve and change and grow, and it's going to take a lot of people away from the truth because they're going to be stuck in this deception world, this virtual deception world that entertains them to death, especially spiritually, because maybe physically they won't be able to die because they're going to be trapped in this virtual reality, or at least some kind of virtual world in the future, like a lot of science fiction and anime and all that kind of stuff is talked about, like how the Bible mentions in Revelation 9:6, where people seek death but don't find it because they're being stung by these creatures that came out of the abyss. What sorts of two-way communication systems are we opening up by creating something like the Void? And again, it's not just some kind of like portal that opens up in the wall, it's actually through your mind. And so that's why we have to make sure that we keep a sober mind and that we stay watchful, spread the gospel, love God, love your neighbor. Have an awesome day, everybody. God bless.